everybody, and welcome to another Thursday night edition of Double Cross Radio. I guess Thursday night is the only night we have an edition of Double Cross Radio. My name is Chuck Horton. I'm your host this week and every week. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to make it last week. We had a rerun from a previous show with Dr. Mary Ruart, which was, in my opinion, a pretty good show. So you guys hopefully were appeased with that. I couldn't speak for more than about a minute and a half without a deep rattling cough going off, and so I just didn't think it would be very good radio for me to come on last week, so I didn't. And because of different things, I haven't had a lot of things to work on today or to work up for the show, but I did have some things I did want to mention that happened this week that I think are kind of interesting. We saw a sharp rise in the price of Bitcoin. It basically doubled in a short period of time and went from around 250 up to 500, and now it's gone back down to about 350. Let's see, what's the exact price here? It's 365 as we speak right now. And that was kind of interesting in that it shows that the Bitcoin is not dead. There's still a lot of action going on there, and things are changing in Bitcoin quite a bit. First of all, the amount of Bitcoin being produced on a yearly basis is half of what it used to be, and I think in 2 more years it will be half again of what's being produced now, and eventually it will end up with 21 million Bitcoin being produced, and that'll be it. And if you ever wondered what the value of a Bitcoin can be, just realize that in a world of 7 billion people, having one Bitcoin would make you quite wealthy, even if it's 1 out of 21 million, because if you can do some math there and divide 21 million by 7 billion, you realize that you'd have something fairly special just to have one Bitcoin. So at 250, it's very, very cheap. At 500, it's still very, very cheap, even though it's twice as expensive as it was before. So we're still at the very beginning of the rise of Bitcoin. It's not the end. It's going to go up and go down and go up and go down because speculators will, and there's nothing wrong with speculators. Speculators are speculating because they think that there's money to be made. That's fine. But I'm just use this to let people know, or I bring this to people's attention so they will understand that these wild swings that happen in the market are they're to be expected, and they shouldn't be something to scare you away. If you realize what the long-term investment potential for Bitcoin is, then you buy it when you can afford it. If you happen to come into some extra money, you can buy fractions of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. And if I get an extra $50, I usually buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, whatever it is I can get for $50. And I let it add up. Over time, I've accumulated quite a few. And I'm not... I think eventually Bitcoin will be somewhere between $100,000 and maybe 10 million, somewhere, and that's pretty widespread. 10 million might be a little bit on the, I guess, the hopeful side, and 100,000 is probably a little on the minimalist side. It's kind of maybe a pessimistic side. Jeff Berwick claimed he'd done some calculations on it, and this was a couple of years ago, and he thought that $1 million, somewhere in that range, would be probably pretty close. I don't know if he's right or not. I just know that there won't be $500. There won't be $365. It won't be $250. If it becomes the world trading exchange or the currency for world trade, it will be at least $100,000 a coin, maybe a lot more. And just think if. How much trade is done annually around the world. It's literally trillions of dollars. So Bitcoin could be worth quite a bit potentially. And if it starts to go up in value, I imagine there'll be other people trying to find something better than Bitcoin. And so it could go to zero if something better comes along. And you got to keep that in mind too. But I thought that this is something that I want to cover more in depth in a later show, probably before the end of the year. So we'll probably be touching on this little by little, maybe to kind of get some people interested so they'll do some reading on their own. And when we do we're going to have Sam Price, our local Bitcoin expert, back on. And hopefully that'll be the show that we're able to talk Jeffrey Tucker to joining us finally in, and that will be a real interesting show because he knows Sam knows a lot of technical things about Bitcoin. Jeffrey Tucker is just a great visionary. He can really imagine the positive changes to our society that Bitcoin has already made and will continue to make as it becomes more and more accepted by more and more people. It really is its greatest value to mankind is to be the freedom that it allows people to have to getting rid of centralized banking and to having something that's it won't be perfect. I want you guys to know this, but certainly it'll be much better than the current system. That doesn't take any great imagination. Anyway, so I thought that was rather newsworthy, and I hope that all of you keep your eyes on Bitcoin. And there's a really nice little site. It's called CoinDesk.com. I'll drop a link into the chat so that you guys can check it out. And there it is. And it's a good place to go. They have lots of stories, positive and negative. But they're honest reporting. They're not someone who's trying to push a point of view. They're not someone with an agenda that gives you, kind of twists the facts around to make it fit their agenda more. And it's just basic news. And howdy, Otto. Anyway, so keep your eye on Bitcoin. And like I said, I think it is still, until something better comes along, I think it's still really way early in the game. Hopefully I live to the point where Bitcoin ultimately becomes a world trading currency. And when that happens, I think my modest investments I've made today will be worth quite a bit. So anyway, going on to the next thing, someone told me there was some flooding in Sudan and today, and I said, well, hadn't heard about that. And then I went and I checked on Drudge. There's nothing there, and I went and I checked, did a Google search, and I said that flooding they've had flooding in each of the last 3 years, and it's. I think these other people were probably responding to maybe a story of relief efforts or whatever that's going on, and. Anyway, Otto is going after the Bob Barker products. Yes, straight jackets. And yeah, they have a lot of good stuff. Anyway, it got me to thinking about. I don't really like to talk about topical issues, things that happen, like in the news. And I start off with two topical issues: the rise, the markets and Bitcoin today. But I think that there's a really an economic thing to learn from this. Is probably going to be, if you listen to this 2 years from now and you happen to hear this show and you hear me talking about Bitcoin, you realize that everything I'm saying is still true. Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is going up and down based on supply and demand. There's a certain amount of supply in there, and some people have been generally accumulating them because a lot of people see it the way I see it. And while they may not have tons and tons of money, they're able to, as more big chains become available every month, they try and buy some before it gets too expensive for them. And then somebody with a lot of money and doesn't really, maybe their money is being threatened. The Chinese government is in really bad financial trouble right now, and they know a lot of Chinese citizens have Bitcoins. but they know that a lot of Chinese citizens have money, and they're trying to shake them down to get to relieve some of their. They're going after the real big players. One of the people that worked for the richest man in China was executed this last week or a short time ago, presumably because he had done some illicit financial transactions. Possibly he was executed so that this richest person didn't have to go to prison or something. He was able to take the fall for him or something and helped his family. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I know that the Chinese government is in real big trouble right now. They based all their economic miracle on Keynesian economic policies, and they're about ready to find out just how well that Keynesian economic policy stuff works. It doesn't work for shit. I tell you, I can't believe that they still are teaching this in colleges when people are paying lots and lots of money to be fed, bullshit information like Keynesian economics, and it floors me that this is anyway. So anyway, there's a lot of economic stuff about Bitcoin that are really great. First of all, it's decentralized, and that's really important. It means that if there's corruption, it's not going to take down the whole system. It'll take down the people that are foolish enough to be corrupt. So it kind of forces you to be responsible for your own stuff, to have your own wallet and your own way of protecting it and keeping it safe. And it isn't hard to do, but you have to be, you can't just leave it online in somebody else's care and expect it to be there when you come back in a year or two. You have to be kind of proactive in your security. So there's a lot of things about it to like in terms of that. There's, by the way, Road Dog says it's a scam, and I disagree with him, but we're not trying to force anybody into our way of thinking. If you don't believe in it, you shouldn't spend your money on it. You should spend your money on something else, because you will not have. If you don't believe in it, you won't have the ability to withstand the ups and downs that come along, because it can be really upsetting. If you don't believe in it 100%, don't spend your money on it, because first time it dips down, you'll think, oh gosh, I was right. It is a scam. I gotta get out of this, and you'll just bail. And then so you'll always be selling at the bottom and buying at the top. And that's just, that's people that are out there that are the speculators. They're trying to drive prices up. They're trying to live off of you people. So, the people that are going to make something out of it are going to be the ones that buy and hold. That's the Warren Buffett philosophy. I don't necessarily like Warren Buffett, but that philosophy is actually a pretty good one when it comes to income-producing stocks. In this case, this is not an income-producing stock, but the blockchain that goes along with Bitcoin. The blockchain is probably the greatest innovation to hit mankind since the printing press. It is going to change the world, and I have no doubt about it. There are so many applications for it that just in the present society that it's incredible. Things like it'll do away with the expensive title insurance and title transfer, because it'll all be recorded. It will it will make the for instance, I'll tell you, when I want to send money to my wife's relatives in Poland, it costs us some money. It's a lot more than it should, because it's just a wire transfer. It doesn't cost the bank anything to do it. There might be a slight currency conversion fee, but they really tack on some extra fees because they know that they can. They can't go too exorbitantly, because there's other systems out there that can transfer money, like MoneyGram and Western Union. But a large bank transfer is pretty expensive. But if you have Bitcoin, you can transfer money there for almost nothing, pennies, and large sums of it. So this is something that it's a lot more convenient for us. We're able to send them more money than we would, because we don't have to pay the bank to move the money over there. We can just transfer it to their wallet in Poland. They can cash it in there. And it saves us money, or enables us to give them more when we want to give them some money to help them out. in the case of a title insurance, when you go to buy a house, the title insurance, the title fees, the closing fees, those amount up to several $1,000s per transaction. This could be almost eliminated with the blockchain. There's a lot of things like this that they'll become more efficient. The record keeping will be much easier to access, and it's absolute proof. And it's such a great technology, such a great innovative service. I think there are uses for it that haven't been invented yet. People with much greater minds than mine will be using this to create all sorts of wonderful stuff in the future. And it's going to make our life easier, less expensive, and allow us to spend money on stuff we're not spending money on now. I mean, we'll live a life of greater luxury. We won't be having our assets siphoned off by people who are just there at the point where money is being transferred from one hand to the other, and they get a fee for just being present. So anyway, I think Road Dogging was saying only if the Tuan, I think he meant town there, uses Bitcoin. Well, they actually do have, in Poland, they have a thing called banks, and they also have Bitcoin exchanges, and the Bitcoin exchanges will fund your bank account, just like they do in America. If you have Bitcoin, you can exchange Bitcoin for, they use a złote, is what they use in Poland for currency. So you could exchange Bitcoin for złote in these exchanges and then use that cash. And it's a very small fee that they take for it. It's like, I don't know. It's a fraction of what a bank would charge, or even MoneyGram. So, oh, Road Dogging, you're going here now. You're starting to because you don't have good intellectual arguments. You're starting to call me names, so that's pissing me off. So I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Okay, so the other things I said, the flood in Sudan. And I don't know when this happened, but it got me to thinking. There's some economic stuff here that we need to cover. It's kind of important, I think. When disaster strikes, and we call them disasters because they're not planned. We don't know they're going to happen. They're unplanned. They're unexpected. And when those things happen, they generally cause a lot of damage and sometimes loss of life. Sometimes these unexpected disasters happen frequently enough that, in terms like an earthquake, that building codes are changed so that buildings can be built to withstand earthquakes. They look at the ones that are damaged and the ones that are still standing, and we try and learn from those things. And so they go on, they make progress or whatever. But what happens is right after right after a disaster like an earthquake, there's a lot of damage. There's a lot of people that may be still alive, trapped under rubble. There might be there's a lot of things that people who weren't affected might want to help. And generally, aid comes to the rescue. A lot of people donate their time, their energies, their money. They send supplies. And generally, the one thing that most people find in these kinds of emergencies is that they're really unprepared for the emergency. They don't have the things they need, like a water stored up or some food. If they're living in a house and things kind of collapsed around them and people couldn't get to them, they couldn't get to stores. They're going to get hungry. They're going to get thirsty. You can only live about 3 days without a supply of water. They might have to drink water that's contaminated and they'll get sick. They might run out of food. Anyway, so one thing that you can really count on, and you don't have to really be a genius to figure this out. You can just kind of read some historical examples of things where tragedies have struck. Is the one thing you can count on is the government, even in a rich country like America, the government is going to be very ill prepared to help you. And if you're going to wait for the government to come and help you, you probably aren't going to come out of the disaster in very good shape. you really need to rely on yourself. And part of being prepared for disasters is making sure you have the necessities to survive. And they really aren't expensive to accumulate them. It's just common sense. You should have like a month's supply of food, maybe 2 or 3 weeks supply of water, a way to purify water. I have a water filter that purifies it takes about an hour, 2 hours to purify a gallon of water, but it works really well. You could take water out of a swamp and put it in that thing, and you'll get drinkable water coming out of it. And you might, if you're taking swampy water, it might get plugged up pretty fast. So I'm not depending on that. I'm just figuring that the city water may not be drinkable, but it won't be so dirty that I won't be able to run through my filter and be able to drink that. I have, it's, as I may have shared with some of you, or frequent listeners may have heard me share this before, I'm gluten intolerant. So a lot of the storable foods that are out there are not really edible for me. They'll make me sick. So I need to find things that are, like rice is a really easy to store. It's high in, carbohydrates, starch. You can get energy from that. But I need to have things like dried or smoked meats or freeze-dried things. I have my next purchase is going to be a solar power generator that I can use to maybe keep a refrigerator going. So if I have frozen food in there, I'm not gonna lose it all. It's not gonna be ruined. But if aside from that, I want to make sure I have some things stored that I can eat that keep me alive for a while until things come back to normal. I'm not one of these people that thinks there's going to be a Mad Max situation in the United States anytime soon. I really think that's a little bit out there, but I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen either. I'm just saying the probabilities are not great. But there are things like Hurricane Sandy, where a lot of people they went to FEMA, and FEMA closed their office because of the hurricane. They didn't have. They're waiting for someone to come and help them, and there were too many people that needed help and not enough people that were there to help. And in fact, the government agencies that were supposed to be helping, they told their employees to stay home. So, and you look at Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana, New Orleans, how horrible a situation that was and how horribly the government messed it up. They herded people up into the Superdome and just left them there, and then the criminals elements that were there just took over. They turned it into oh man, it was just horrible what happened there. People that were out in their homes and they were doing just fine, they'd have National Guard people come and disarm them and left them as sitting ducks for people who want to come and take everything they had. And that was the Mad Max thing was going on in small scale there. But it was the government that was the oppressor, the government that was screwing things up. The people that had taken some measures to protect themselves were being stripped of their ability to preserve their what little wealth they had left, their water and their food. And that was really sad. So I think that you really have to just don't be thinking that there's going to be somebody coming from the government to help you, because that's just not going to happen. And if it does, it's going to be the first time. And that leads me to the last thing I wanted to say about this. This is funny. Someone just mentioned a flood, and all these other things came to my mind. But there's going to be another disaster. It's going to strike this country in the near future, and I'm not sure. I hope it doesn't happen in my lifetime, but it certainly is very, very. It could. I think there's a decent degree of probability that it will, and that is the collapse of the Social Security system. I got to tell you, folks, there's no lockbox with money in it, or there's no money, period. Social Security is dead broke, and so is Medicare and Medicaid. And if you haven't made your own provisions to take care of yourself, one of the reasons I went back to work and went back into business after I'd retired at age 55, which was 9 years ago. One of the reasons I re-entered business is because I'm not so sure that I'm not going to have to work the rest of my life, because I think that maybe some of my financial instruments that I have will work out for me. Maybe they won't, but I'm not going to depend on all these other things that I don't really have a lot of faith in coming through for me. And I think that you should start making those kinds of plans yourself. You should try and keep yourself as healthy as possible so you can work as long as possible. Because I tell you, when you get to a point where you're no longer able to earn a living or work for a living or bring home any money at all, and you have to rely on the government, that is one scary situation. That's a nightmare I don't want to live through, because every month you're wondering if that check's going to be deposited in your bank. You have and then when it is, you're going to be wondering, how much will I be able to buy with it? Because if they do keep sending these checks out, I'm afraid if there's any kind of inflation at all, that the purchasing power of that Social Security check is going to buy you maybe a couple of days worth of groceries, and that's it. So you better have the ability to provide for yourself for as long as you can. Don't sit there and say, I'm going to kick back at age 65 or 66 or 69, whatever, and I'm just going to enjoy life. Well, you better have something else going on, because I really don't think it's going to last much longer. I would be surprised if it lasts till the year 2020, but it could last to the 2030. 2030. Possible. I mean, I didn't think that the Federal Reserve would be stupid enough to keep on with the quantitative easing, but I think they've painted themselves in a corner and they cannot get out of it. So who knows? So that was some thoughts I had about disasters. After I found out that the person that brought up the thing about the floods in Sudan was talking about floods that happened six months ago, and then 18 months ago, and maybe 36 months ago. I don't know how long they've been happening. Sudan's been getting more rainfall than it ever used to. I don't know, maybe that's something to do with all these chemtrails that are out there and geoengineering. They're trying to make the desert bloom again or something. But they've gotten a lot more rain than they normally would in those areas, and some of the low-lying areas have flooded, and people are ill-prepared to and they're not prepared for that inevitability. And road dogging, if Social Security isn't lasting long, that means the dollar is worthless. When the dollar collapses, and I'm pretty sure it will, it's not going to be around. And so I want to have something that I can buy and sell products with that is worth something to somebody else. And Bitcoin to me seems to be one of the better options out there. I think that gold is also a viable option, although there are a lot of people out there that don't know what an ounce of gold or a tenth of an ounce of gold is really worth in terms of a product. Silver and silver coins, junk coins, like little silver dimes, those can be currency that might get you through, might have some value. I know I posted something to our Facebook page about there's a story that Dollar Vigilante had about Overstock.com and some of the plans they're taking for the collapse of the economy. And this is a company that does billions of dollars in commerce every month. They are a big time business, and you should see what they're doing. And this is smart money as far as I'm concerned. And they're taking steps to they have, if the dollar collapses, they have enough silver on hand to pay their employees with silver. They have enough food stored that they can make sure that their employees will be able to have food and sustenance for quite a period of time, and they don't have to rely on going out to the grocery stores or whatever. They can continue operating in business. Bitcoin is one of the businesses Overstock is one of the companies and businesses out there that accepts Bitcoin for their products. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why that Bitcoin is one of my things, my eggs in my basket, my survival basket, because I don't think I think the people that are relying on the dollar. I'm having trouble talking tonight. The people that are relying on the dollar for their survival, those are the people that I think are they're not using their head. They're not using reason and logic. I mean, what is it that makes a dollar valuable? It's just a piece of paper, and it's only funded. It's a debt base. It's not really even money. It's currency. It's a note of debt. It's a note. It's not money. John F. Kennedy was planning on taking us back into a precious metal based currency, and he'd already started printing $5 bills that would be backed with silver, and he was about ready to roll out ones and tens, and they shot him. And it might have just been a coincidence. I don't know, but I think that the people that are in charge of stuff, or they think they are in charge of stuff, they couldn't have somebody actually presenting an honest currency that would allow the great untrodden masses to actually have a life and be able to work hard and save money. And when they got to a point where they couldn't earn money anymore, they could live off of their savings. You know, they didn't want to have that. They want to have they want to have them beholden to the people that print the money and create it. So that's just kind of my take on disasters, is that you better be out there looking out for yourself now, and don't wait for it to happen, because it might be something simple like an earthquake. It's there, it lasts for a while, and it knocks a bunch of, maybe it causes some mudslides in a arterial freeway or whatever that brings most of your produce and groceries to your neck of the woods is lost, and there's no way to get stuff in there except they can fly it in, and all of a sudden the grocery store shelves are empty, and what are you going to eat? And they say it's going to take 6 months to fix the road so they can get things going, and they're still flying in emergency supplies, but it's pretty dangerous going out there and getting them, because there's a lot of people that are stealing them from people. They know where you are. They follow you back to your house and take it from you. I don't know. I think it's better just to have yourself prepared for the worst and hope for the best. That's kind of a good philosophy. And the economics here is really sound in that you need to know what is of value. And I gotta tell you, when and if we have an emergency where the dollar collapses, you could come out with millions of dollars in U.S. and Federal Reserve notes, and nobody's going to want them. So don't be suckered into that, where you think that it's money. It's money. It's not money. It's currency. Money is something that has value, and the people that don't like Bitcoin, I know that's what makes them uneasy, because it's virtual. It's not real in terms of something you can touch, but it is real in terms of what it does. And it's kind of something new, and it's hard to wrap your mind around it. And I understand that. Some of my really good friends they're not down with Bitcoin, but the ones that can really see what it does, they can see how it works. Like my friend Sam, they understand that, it is almost like money. It's a lot more like money than the Federal Reserve notes are. Gold and silver, that is money. Gold and silver's been around as money for a long time. Since people began trading, they first start out with barter, and after a while, certain barter items become respected or known to have a certain value among all people, and it's fairly uniform, and so they began to use those when they don't have a coincidence of wants. I mean, in other words, if I want eggs and the guy that I want to get eggs from doesn't want anything I have, if I have gold or silver, he'll take that. And so it becomes a medium of exchange, and because it's relatively scarce, it's hard to counterfeit it, although I am in possession of 5 counterfeit silver dollars. They're just copper pieces that have been silver plated, and it's kind of funny. It's who would have thought that silver dollar would be worth counterfeiting? And they're metal coins. It's not something that's easy to do, but it's they're doing that in parts of Europe. They counterfeit things like that for whatever. Okay, other things we want to talk about tonight. I have to go check on my show notes. Oh yeah, we have a presidential race that's heating up, and as I said, I don't like to talk too much about current events, and here I am devoting almost a whole show to current events, but I have talked about the criminal behavior of one of the candidates for. Actually, there's probably more than one of the candidates that exhibit a lot of criminal behavior. But the one that really is just outrageously over the top criminal is one of the Democrat candidates. And that's Hillary. And it looks like she's withstood the charge of Bernie Sanders and his threat to her taking it over. And I think the main reason that she's able to, just get rid of him or cast him, just pass him by, is you have no idea how much money she has behind her. I think that even though right now she polls behind every single Republican candidate that's up there on the stage, even the ones that are being booted off the stage because they're falling below the standard of being a viable candidate. Even though that's true, as soon as it comes to the point where there's one person for her to target and start to go after, when the Republicans have chosen their candidate, the amount of money that she has behind her, and most of this money has come from foreign governments, by the way. I want you all to know this, through all sorts of political action communities that are funded, and the Clinton Library, which gets all sorts of huge donations. Everything that she does is while it might be technically legal, is against the spirit of the laws that were written in the presidential campaign finance reform, which I never knew. I knew it would never work and it would be abused by those who want to rule the world, because they'll find the loopholes and they'll use them to take over power, and no one else will ever be able to get up to them because they will use those same laws to keep anybody else from coming close to them ever. And that's what's happening. That people like Dinesh D'Souza gets thrown in prison for a minor infraction, and Hillary Clinton she has infractions that are literally trillions, I don't say trillions, trillions is exaggeration, billions of dollars more than Dinesh D'Souza's donation account amounted to like $20,000 or something like that. Her donations that are crimes are billions of dollars, and she'll never spend a day in jail. So that just shows you that the people that are running stuff, they use those stuff to keep other people from getting ahead, getting to a point where they could inflict wounds upon the elites. And make no doubt about it, Hillary is an elite, and if you're still a Democrat, you're still a registered Democrat, you should be ashamed of yourself, because she's the figurehead of your party, and she is a piece of trash. There's no other way to say it. I wouldn't walk across the street to spit in her face. She's just not worth the time or the effort. I tell you, if she married Bill Clinton because he was anointed. I have a feeling that Bill Clinton was the illegitimate son of one of the Rockefellers. And I know that somehow he avoided the Vietnam War. He got some kind of special draft status, whatever. He wasn't drafted. He got selected to go on to Oxford. He traveled all through Europe, including to the Soviet Union at a time when it was really frowned on by the State Department. Yet he was able to spend a lot of time there with people that were contacts, whatever. He seemed to have this is somebody who was born to a prostitute. His mother was a prostitute. And, he barely had, the guy drove around in was one of those, El Caminos with AstroTurf in the back. He literally was a starving college student. He didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. And, suddenly he is one of the richest people on the planet, and he never ever has had a job that paid more than the biggest job he ever had was president, when he was making a couple $100,000 a year. Now, how do you go from that to being worth over $100 million? Well, that's kind of how they are, those Clintons. They're one of the richest people, and actually I think they're probably worth over $1 billion. Who knows how much money they've been able to salt away in the Swiss bank accounts, offshore accounts in different places. Yet they don't want anybody else to have that because they know that's a threat to their power. So they crack down on everybody else. But trust me, Hillary Clinton has so much money behind her that they will, and the media is their playground. They call it programming for a reason, and they will use that money to win the Democrat nomination and to destroy their Republican opponent. They have dirt on the people they need to have dirt on, and whoever the Republicans pick, and trust me, it'll be someone she can beat. They will pick the weakest person possible, just like they did for Obama twice. And she will bring up all this stuff, and the guy, I bet it'll be Jeb Bush is the one they'll pick, and he'll just be there sputtering, but they call me Jeb, and I think I earned that. I earned that distinction. And I didn't think that it was possible that there could be a presidential candidate be dumber than W, but Jeb has showed me that you should never underestimate the lack of intelligence of a Bush. So it looks like I still think that because those are the 2 people that have all the money behind them, that those are the 2 people that are going to be involved in the race. And I think I wouldn't count out Donald Trump just because he's kind of a flamboyant guy, but if he gets too close, it looks like he might pull it off. Trust me, I think that they have ways. They like him going there, kind of being the distraction, the sideshow that he is, because it takes attention away from all the crap that should be falling on all around Hillary right now about the email scandals, the Benghazi Gate, the previous things that happened when she was in the White House as a first lady, how she, everything she touched turned to crap. And, one of the reasons we have toxic vaccines now is because of a program she set up with vaccinations. She wanted to have one central entity that would dispatch vaccines to places when and if they needed them, kind of a central bank, only it'll be a vaccine bank. And they set up a warehouse. They were going to keep all these vaccines for the entire nation, and they set it up there, and unfortunately there was a brownout or something, and their air conditioning went down, and all the vaccinations were ruined. And then the winter hit, and there wasn't enough vaccines for something going on. I don't remember exactly what it was. And even Senator Ted Kennedy rose to this floor of the Senate and was complaining about who fouled this thing up. And as more and more information became apparent, it was realized that it was none other than Hillary who had screwed up things so badly. And her hectoring people into doing this and doing that, and without really any authority. She was not in any power. She was not in any position. She wasn't, but just her insistence on getting these things done. She got other people to make these decisions. And so the system couldn't be gotten rid of because it was Hillary's baby. So the people that made the vaccines had to make vaccines that would be able to withstand change. They couldn't just be made up on the spot, so they could be stored for a long time. They had to be stronger, virulent things that they were vaccine, like a polio vaccine would have to be stronger than it was before. So it'd have to have a stronger polio virus in it than it had before. And then it'd have to be able to be stored. So it would have to have stuff in it that would keep the virus weak enough that it wouldn't inflict the recipient with polio. So they added things to like mercury and things like that to keep the virus weak. Well, some of the kids that get these shots and all these different things they put in them to keep the stuff that you're being vaccinated against weak, some of those things actually cause things like autism. Oh, there I said it. Thank you, Hillary, for autism. Another gift from one of the elites to us. And I think that it's just amazing how the things that these people do to us they go unpunished for their whole lives. No one ever holds them to account for any of the things they do and any of the consequences that are come about from their actions. And certainly, I just can't believe that if you're a decent person that you can still stay as a registered Democrat and let this person be your choice to run for president, and you'll somehow just join those throngs and masses of mindless people. They'll just chant Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. They don't care. They don't care that she's the one that's causing all their problems or causing some of their problems. There'll probably even be people in that crowd who have autistic children, and they'll be just, It's just unbelievable. You can talk to the people that had, maybe the parents of the people that died at Benghazi, the American servicemen that came to the aid of Ambassador Stevens, and they died there. And she talked to them, and she assured them that they were going to get to the bottom of this in the investigation. And well, all that's happened is Hillary has covered up anything. These families still have no idea what happened. They have a story, but it doesn't seem to make sense. It's a story. It certainly wasn't caused by some movie like they first claimed. There's a lot more to be said about what was going on. And Hillary knows what it was, but she certainly has not shared it with any of those people, maybe because it's classified. It's classified because, I have a famous scene from the Jack Nicholson movie, "You Can't Handle the Truth." Well, she still promised those families she was going to get to the bottom of it and let them know exactly what happened. She didn't. She couldn't. She's a criminal. She's running for president. What else can I say? So all you people out there that are Democrats, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should try switching to the Libertarian Party. You'd find a lot there to like. I mean, they really stand up for individual civil rights, civil liberties. They have, they really, the non-aggression principle. I think that's just an amazing way to live your life. Is that you don't initiate the use of force to do anything. Everything should be a mutual, voluntary exchange, and that's just a peaceful way to live, because both people, if it's a voluntary exchange, then both people are better off after the exchange. Otherwise, they wouldn't make the exchange. It's only when you are forcing people to make exchanges that mistakes are made, and that somebody comes out on the short end of a stick. You're not exchanging on your free will. You're being forced to purchase health insurance, for instance, or maybe that isn't the best use of your money. Maybe you're really healthy. Maybe you eat really well. You don't consume crap food, and you stay away from antibiotics, and you keep your immune system strong, and you'd rather spend your money on good food and good health and supplements and not on insurance, because you'll be sick if you don't buy these things. And insurance just keeps going up and up and up, and it just, Road Dog, I'm serious. Libertarian Party, we're not forcing you to join, Road Dog, and you can stay in the GOP or the DEM if you wish, or you can just be an independent. That's be better than either one of those. I mean, please don't tell me that you're a Republican, because those guys, they had one candidate in the last 150 years that was really a decent candidate. And what they do is they called him a crackpot. He was the only decent candidate for office that in my lifetime that I've ever seen. And that was Ron Paul. And the guy was amazing. He's against these crazy wars in the Middle East. He's against the Federal Reserve. It's a central bank. He realized the insanity of a central bank and how it enslaves us to debt. He was against this taxation that raises money for our own enslavement. It's like we're forging our own chains, and they're just paper chains at that. And that they might as well be titanium, and that they're unbreakable. And Road Dogg, anarchy is not. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Anarchy is not lawlessness. It doesn't mean there's no rules. It means there's no rulers. And society is going to be, your governing is going to be decentralized. It'll be, it isn't going to emanate from Washington, D.C. It'll be the place where you live, the city you live. You have a city government. You have a voice. If it's a large city, you might want to move to a smaller city where you have a little more freedom, where you can actually you can get some of the things that you want without forcing other people to give up things that they want to keep. Now, that's pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, so much for not wanting to do a show on current events. So that's how that is. And we're here at the end of the show. I'll just give you another Bitcoin update. It's at 362.49. After briefly touching 500 earlier this week, and even earlier this week, after briefly, leaving its which I think is a new bottom of $250. So it's kind of trading between $250 and $500, and now it looks like it's just about almost exactly in between those two numbers. And so I think that will be something. It's a current event that you should keep your eye on. It's going to change your life, whether you want to believe it or not. I mean, there were a lot of people that probably thought the printing press was just what a waste of metal. And one of the empires that ruled the world at that point was the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was the strongest, most advanced civilization in the world at the time of the invention of the printing press. They saw it as a threat to their power because knowledge is power, and they understood that very well. And so they banned it from their empire. It was not allowed inside the Ottoman Empire. Within a generation, they went from being the greatest empire on the face of the earth to being just an anecdote in the dustbin of history. And within one generation, every nation that touched their borders was greater power than they were, just because they had kept the greatest invention to hit mankind at that time, the printing press, out of their empire. They fell behind everybody else, and they never ever caught up. And they collapsed all the way back into Turkey and collapsed. And it wasn't until Ataturk and the Great Reformation that they started to move forward once again, when they started to accept some technologies. And a lot to be learned from history, but some people are just suckers, and they keep on repeating all those same old stupid mistakes that other people have mistakenly made, and they don't understand when something great comes about. And the blockchain is something great. Excuse me, I have to use a cough button. Pardon me for that. Still a little residual of my cold going on there, but I haven't had to cough during the show until just now. That's pretty good, 55 minutes. Okay, in the coming weeks, we have some exciting things lined up. None of them are for sure yet, but they're pretty cool. We're going to talk to Joshua from lives in Costa Rica about living outside the country, becoming an expat, what it's done for his life, or how his life has changed, or how what he likes, what he doesn't like about it. Sounds to me like he's kind of got it made in the shade, and he maybe doesn't live a life that all of you would like to live, but he enjoys the heck out of it. So I think I tip my hat to him. I guess, as I told you earlier, a reference, we're still working on getting Jeffrey Tucker on the show in the near future, and I think that will probably happen once I finish reading this book, A Beautiful Anarchy, and I'm just about done. While I was sick, I got to read quite a bit of it and actually made a lot of notes. There's enough material there for about 10 shows. It's going to be hard to narrow it down to the ones that I think are going to be the most interesting, but I think Bitcoin is probably the most, and he understands the potential for Bitcoin and blockchain, and I think that would be a great show. So keep your eyes open and ears open for that. I'll try and promote it a little bit more than I do my normal show. And then I'm working on seeing if I can get to do an interview with Simon Black. And if we do this, it'll probably be a pre-recorded interview, and then we'll have to just play it live during our show, and then have that serve as our show for that day. And then it may or may not last the full hour, so we might have like 40 minutes, and then we can talk about the things that were discussed on the show. And I think that would be awesome. Simon Black is really an amazing guy, and those of you who follow the Sovereign Man and the things that he posts, he's an amazing guy. He knows history more about history than just about anybody I've ever met, and he understands the economics behind the things that make history happen, and he's just a fabulous guy. I hear the music. Please, we're out of here. Thank you all for listening.